Hello, welcome back to the Fashion Nap. I'm so excited to share this week's conversations with you. First, I'm going to take you to talk to designer and director Priya Ahluwalia, all about being a multi-hyphenate powerhouse, how to run a business, and how not to be a and if that doesn't inspire you enough, then we're going to go and talk to my favorite fashion illustrator, Anjelica Roselyn. She walks us through her whole journey at the 10-year mark of her career. These conversations have advice that can be applied to anyone's life. However, if you want to work in fashion, stay tuned. If you're a woman that wants to work in fashion, do not move. And if you're a black woman, even better. My number one piece of advice to you this week is to get a notepad and pen because these girls are dropping gems and you're going to want to catch them. But let's walk and talk because I need to get to these interviews. We're going to go and talk to Priya Ahluwalia. I want to know about her Ace and Take collab. I want to know about her directorial career. I want to know about her inspirations. I want to know about the Vogue cover. I want to know about everything, and hopefully she will tell us everything.
So I see things in thirds.
I see things like... Hello, welcome back to the Fashion Nap. I feel like you know who I'm sitting with, but I'm going to tell you anyway. I am in the studio in the big boss office of Miss Priya Ahluwalia. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm actually really excited.
We have this beautiful mood board behind us. You can't see it out of shot, but we have your amazing Autumn Winter 2023 collection behind us as well, which is a great source of inspiration when I'm talking to you. Where did your interest in fashion come from?
It's a really good question and one I get asked often, but it's quite hard to answer because it's just a part of me. So I've just remember being interested in fashion since I was very, very small. And my mum's like quite a stylish woman, and she would always buy like magazines and like Vogue and Elle and ID and everything. And I used to, like, as a kid, read them from front to back. I've always been a reader, and I would like try and memorize like every detail I could. So I would really be interested to learn like the inspiration behind designers' collections. I used to like love the fact that I could like look at an editorial and tell you, oh, that is Prada, that's Chanel, that's Dior. So I was really fascinated by it, and I loved drawing. So I knew from a young age I wanted to be a designer, but I'm Indian and Nigerian, and so career in design is not necessarily at the time what your parents want you to do. Like, you know, they're worried about you being successful in a place that's not necessarily set up for you to be successful. So the compromise was I had to do really well at school, and then I could do whatever I wanted.
At least you got like to balance it, because some people it's just straight up like you're not doing that.
I think my mum believed in me, my family believed in me, because I worked hard at it, and I put a lot of effort and time into being a designer, and at the same time also like learning all my other subjects. And actually I think having a well-rounded education has led to me being good at business and like being good in different situations. So it's been really helpful.
I was going to ask you that, but you just answered it. I was going to say, do you think it helps? But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many, especially being a business owner, there's so many elements to owning a business that are beyond design. And, you know, it's so crazy because now when I think about it, my weeks, like the amount of time I actually get to design is much smaller than when I first started the brand, when I was doing everything myself. Because like you have to do lots of meetings, you have to do pitching, you have to think about finances and do your cash flow, you have to meet with clients. There's so many different elements to it. And I think being quite studious has prepared me for that in some ways.
Which is amazing that you feel like you can then have a hand in all parts of your business, because a lot of brands, when they start, they have like a business partner and one person is the creative brain and one person has to handle everything else. If you understand, at least have an understanding of, obviously you can outsource, but just to follow along what's going on, even if you're not doing it yourself, is probably quite an asset.
Yeah, and I think it's really important, like as a business owner, to understand how all the different elements of your business work, even if you're not going to do it. It helps you to be able to help your team problem solve. It helps you to think of, you know, solutions or strategies in a more rounder and 360 way. I think like knowing how each element works also helps in case of emergency, if you need to muck in something that you don't normally do. But also at the same time, it helps you negotiate things better. You know, like if I didn't know how to pattern cut or sew a garment, or if I didn't know how to, you know, if I didn't have an interest in marketing, I might be outsourcing all of this and getting bumped. So actually, it's just smart business to really understand each element of a business. And that's what my advice would be actually to someone that wants a business, is to learn their craft and learn it in a way that is all elements.
Whole.
Yeah.
People kind of talk down on being like a jack of all trades, but I love it. I think it's a good thing, and I try to be one. Your last collection, I had the pleasure of coming to see it, and I've read a lot about it, read the show notes, saw it with my own two eyes. It was inspired by fairy tales from, you've mentioned, Nigerian and Indian heritage. How did you begin translating those inspirations into clothes?
I first of all, every season I start by like writing quite a lot. Like I have a thought in my mind, and I also often find writing helps me like finish that thought or develop that thought into something that's kind of more meaningful, something I can translate to my team. And so I was thinking about storytelling a lot, because of other projects I've been doing. And so I started to think about the stories that we grow up with as children and how they teach us lessons and things like that. And I thought it was really interesting. So from there, I started research. Like I got books, like fairy tale books from both Nigeria and India, and then I started reading the fairy tales, and then I was pulling up motifs and elements from that, and then looking at Nigerian and Indian artists that represent that in their art, or literally looking at the pages of storybooks. I had this like, lots of them are set in historical periods. So I was looking at historical dress from those times, and then I create a big mood board. This is not actually the mood board from that, but it's similar. It's the same size. And then from that, I pull all the research, and then from that, I curate it across the mood board. So to other people, this might just look like a board of loads of pictures, but I know that like one area is on color, one area is on graphics, one area is on proportion. So it develops like that.
Few thoughts now. It must be so important to have the right team, because you mentioned like translating the idea in a way that they will understand. I didn't really think about how important being understood from the inception of your idea must be to get the final products that you intend. Like so many people along the way have to be on the same page as you.
Yeah.
It could be challenging, I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm naturally a leader, and I really do enjoy having a team and like watching them develop and fostering their development in their own personal growth. And I think that part of being able to do that is being good at communicating, being organized, and understanding that they have like their week as well as you have your week. So I'm always we're quite organized in how we work. Like we have like regular feedback meetings where we catch up and we go back and forth, and I give them feedback and say, okay, I love this, but I'm thinking more about this, and why did you get to this? And questioning their thought processes. And sometimes they show me something I didn't think of, and other times I'm very much leading on what's going on. So yes, it's a team effort, but it has to be it's like a question and answer type situation.
When I came in here, I can see it's a very nice vibe, and even coming to your show, I felt like it had a really nice energy, like compared to, not to say other shows don't have nice energy, but like you don't notice when it's not there, but you notice when it's there.
Oh,
and I felt like it was really like everyone was chatting to each other in the seats, which normally you kind of just sit to yourself, like shaking hands, introduce themselves.
Yeah.
I feel like it was a real, like, you can just see that everybody really supports you and is really happy to watch you and see you win. So I got the same sort of vibe when I walked into the office today. It seems like good vibes.
Thank you. That's really nice to say. And I think that actually after the last show, that was a lot of the feedback. Like everyone kept saying I couldn't believe like our community and like how the energy was so beautiful on that day, and everyone was really happy to be there, and people from all different walks of life are there, and that's something I find really important. And I guess, and the same in my inside work, right? We have to work a lot. Working Monday to Friday is a lot of your life. I'm very big on like boundaries with my team in terms of like I don't overstep their boundaries of their life. I'm not like, and I'm sort of going on a tangent, but it's the same thing as talking about our community or like the good vibes in the office. I have started my own brand, and I want the energy to be somewhere that is lovely to be. I don't, I've worked for other people or had experience in other businesses where the energy is so bad because there's this sort of like, I don't know, sort of stereotype of being like a bitchy fashion environment that people live up to, but that doesn't do anything apart from foster negativity and bad like energy. Like I also, when I was sort of studying and then in my early career, there wasn't really much space for designers or creatives that look like me. And now we're getting so much better at it. We're creating these new spaces in this new world. And for me, part of that, because of my dedication to think about people and the planet in the work that we do, is having a nice environment. It's like the most basic thing, but it's a need, and I think that people deserve to be at work and like, you know, not be screamed at, or you know, I just don't understand. Like, I hear horror stories and I
Mm.
don't get it. Like, I honestly think, why is, you know, there's no need for it to be like that. So yeah, I think community is important. Like, community is what drives everything forward. You know, it drives visibility forward, it drives like the message forward, but it all, you know, at the end of the day, it drives sales forward, it drives everything forward, but it's also just a nice way of being. And I think that, like, when I read about communities in history and communities that are the way that there's community living very much in India and Nigeria, it's only good for people. So I like that sort of environment, and I want my team to feel like we're like a little mini community. You know, they might be here for many years, they might be here for a minute, but I want to make sure that they have a nice time while they are here. So that's kind of how I feel about it.
It's really nice to hear that. Some things become buzzwords, and I think a lot of people talk about community at the moment in terms of like, like I want to make money and buy land and like live on a
Yeah,
farm, and that's community. But it's like you can actually like take what you know about community and put it into your workplace, your everyday life.
absolutely.
It's not this sort of like far away thing. It's actually like
Yeah,
we're in it now, and you can either make it good or bad, like perpetuate those stereotypes that we're talking
yeah.
about, which I completely agree about, and they only exist because people keep doing it.
Is being a prick to someone is more energy than not. You know, you have to make a choice to be
Mm-hmm.
horrible to someone. So deciding to do that every day is just bonkers to me.
Yeah.
You know, like we have interns and stuff, and I really feel quite proud if they say that they've learned something and they like got to try something they never tried before, because, you know, then they can go on and take that into something that they want. I don't know. I just think like um, it's interesting to be asked about it because I don't necessarily think about it, but I
Mm.
just like having a nice environment. If you think about like finance workplaces, or you know, places like that, there's companies in America, like big finance companies that trade and stuff, that like you have to be like analyzed in front of your whole team,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll like review you in front of everyone. That's so toxic, and I don't know how that drives to productivity. Like, I get that there's loads of ways to you want to try and make people more productive, but like making someone really sad, I just don't know how that works.
Well, I think those companies, it's kind of like they want everybody in the room to care about their business as if it's their own, which is
That's
never going to
just,
happen.
it's
First
never
of
gonna
all,
ever
never going to
happen.
happen. Kind of like work people until they snap and then get somebody else because you want
Yeah.
your highest level
People
of
don't,
production.
people
But
love working. People could really enjoy some working somewhere. People couldn't, but it's not their business. So they're
mm,
not going to have that same energy. That's why I believe it's your responsibility to make it a nice place to be. So they want to come to work.
music to my ears.
Yeah.
So many know you to be a designer. You also direct.
Mhm.
Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I direct films as well as having been the creative director and designer at my brand. And I it started because about 3 years ago, I think, I don't know, I get a bit confused with timelines because of COVID. It kind of messed up my timeline in my head. But I was approached by Gucci to create a film called, and they basically commissioned different designers to make films in COVID. It was really amazing of them, actually. And they did this event called Gucci Fest. And so I created a film called Joy, and I co-directed it with a director called Simona Alani Peckham, and I had the most amazing time doing it. It was a film that celebrated the Black British experience, and I loved it so much. And I remember, this sounds really dramatic, but being on set and saying like, this is one of the most important days of my life, and I really need to like take everything in. I remember sort of like looking, when there was a quiet moment, like looking around and like meaningfully taking everything in on each different like setup, because I was like, this is just crazy. I don't know how to explain it. I had this really overwhelming feeling that I really wanted to do more of it. So I'm big on research, and I love reading and learning it whenever I can. And so I started learning like lots more about it. And every time I got an opportunity to do a film, I was doing another one. And then for the brand. And then eventually I got approached by Ridley Scott Associates. So Ridley Scott, the film director, he's got a agency and production business, and approached by them on LinkedIn, actually, which I never use. So I was really glad I checked my messages for once. And on LinkedIn, I got a message. They asked to come in, and they asked me, you know, have you thought about being a film director and being signed? And I was like, had this really big moment of imposter syndrome for a while, and it was it took me a while to actually say yes. And what was really funny is they asked me, and 2 weeks later I got asked by another agency if I wanted to be signed, and I was like, this has got to be some sort of sign. And anyway, it took me a while to figure out, what does that mean for me, even just time wise, but sort of as a creative, like what do I want to get out of that? And I'm so glad I said yes. So I've been signed with them. I've been doing like going back to school basically. So behind the scenes, I've done work experience with a DOP. I've done an editing. I've been doing like, I knew how to edit a bit, but I've been doing like much more intensive like editing courses, really doing a lot of script writing and things like that, like in my own time, which I don't really have my own time. So I just work a lot, but I enjoy it. So yeah, and then since then I now obviously direct things for the brand, but then outside of that I'm directing for I've directed films for Nike and Levi's, British Vogue, the Design Museum, music videos. So yeah, it's really fun.
I'm really taken aback that you only started that recently. So that Gucci film was your first,
So
or were you interested in it before?
so the Joy for Gucci was the first one, and that was like 2.5 or 3 years ago. Yeah.
Okay, I'm making this face because you sent me your, like, is it portfolio you call it?
Yeah,
Show
reel,
reel. Reel, we're in the business. She sent me her reel and I obviously looked at it. You're really good.
Thank you so much.
So when you, the whole time you're talking, I'm just thinking, what?
Yeah, it's a bit
Because
crazy.
that was not that long ago.
No, I think when you are a creative director, there are transferable skills, and like there's ways of working that transfer into film. And then if I don't know something, I ask loads of questions. I make it my business to learn, like I've got an amazing, and again, no person is an island. Like I have an amazing producer I work with on most of my projects called Becky from Ridley Scott. And, we work together to find solutions for things. I watch documentaries, or like if I'm watching something, for example, at the moment I'm watching Blue Lights on BBC. It's like a police drama, but it's filmed really beautifully. And then I'm like, I look up what camera it was filmed on. So I'm constantly picking at like information where I can, and it just becomes part of it. Asking questions and not being afraid to not be the best in every single field, I think has allowed me to learn more. I don't have an ego issue.
Well, I think you can clearly see that.
Yeah.
Watching, even just talking to you, meeting you, you're just very personable.
Thank you.
You never know what someone's going to be like when you meet them, especially like
Yeah.
someone that's, you are the face of your brand, but like behind the scenes.
Yeah. I struggle with that face of the brand thing a lot, actually, because I totally appreciate that people want to see me and want me to be. I get asked to do a lot of things, like things like this, or be in lots of shoots, and it's really funny because I go through phases where I'm like, I don't want to be seen in anything at all. I really want to be behind the scenes, but the story behind my work is so connected to my heritage and like where I come from. I think it's just really interesting. But I'm still, an insecure woman, so I do find it. I'm really trying to work on the confidence thing in terms of being confident to just be myself and be happy and appreciate my body and the vessel that allows me to do all this stuff. But I sometimes struggle with that.
I mean, I can sit here now and say, "Oh, you're stunning," but
No,
it's not. That's not the problem, is it? It's how we see ourselves. You kind of have to just desensitize yourself to seeing yourself all the time.
I know.
I have to remind myself, like, I'm a moving image, so like you're never going to look like what you think you look like all the time.
Even when you watch something on a screen, it's not how you see things in real life. You don't see every perspective. And yeah, honestly, I'll be really transparent. I've done like a lot of work on myself about it, because when I first started, oh my God, it would make me really stressed having to be in photo shoots. Like, I just remember having some bad experiences. I did a shoot for one of I'm not going to say who it was, but one of our stockists. And I told them I'm not sample size. And I was in Berlin doing the shoot and they didn't bring any clothes that weren't sample size. So I was in a toilet crying, like, it was just not.
Because you feel like it's your fault. And it's like that one simple thing they could have done that was negligence on their end.
Now I know.
Has that impact.
Yeah. Now I know the thing. There's two sides to it. Now I have very clear sort of like requirements. If I'm going to do a shoot with someone, I need to know. And now obviously, and that was when I was only doing menswear, so I didn't have women's wear clothes. That's why they dressed me in. Now obviously I wear my own clothes all the time anyway. I don't want to do big shoots without hair and makeup. There's certain things I have to put in place for me to be all right with like being in front of a camera and then not like regretting it or feeling really low about it. I have this sort of ecosystem of stuff I do to make sure I can try and turn up and be the best version of myself every day, which isn't perfect.
But it never will be. As long as you
Never.
feel good, that's what you can
My therapist
aim
said
for.
something, told me something really, tells me something. I haven't been to therapy for a while, but she told me something really interesting. Like, your life is like a pie. And before, I was trying to operate like in every single element of that pie at like full scope. So, like, being a good friend, being a good boss, being a good partner, being really creative, thinking of new ideas, going to the gym 4 times a week, eating healthily. And I was trying to like be the best at all of them and then getting so upset with myself if I wasn't. But life isn't like that. One week you're going to see your friends more, so that another piece of that pie needs to be smaller. And you kind of need to just keep everything in mind, but give yourself grace. And that's what I try and do, which I think all of that sort of thinking feeds into how I also work.
I'm sure it does. And like casting for shows and this kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's good that you're conscious of that realm of
Yeah.
things.
Like, our models, whenever they come back to the studio for fittings or whatever, they're like so happy to be here. And like every single show I've done, I always get a comment from at least 5 of the models. Like, they've never been at a show with that kind of energy where they felt like really a part of something, you know, like we get models coming for casting. They're like, I've told my agent I want to be in this show. And that's like, we're not a huge brand. It's not Prada. It's not like, you know, it's not something like that. So it's because we make people feel welcome, I think.
That's like a running thread, not to make a
Yeah.
really cringe like design pun thread, but everything got good energy
Yeah, it's just got
in
to be
your
good
work.
vibes. Otherwise, what's the point?
I've been speaking to people, UK, US, everywhere, but what do you think needs to be improved in the way we support designers in London specifically?
Good question. I think that there are elements where there is really good support for designers. So, like, the British Fashion Council, I think, have been really supportive to me in my career, and I know that they have for others. And I think that as a city in London and a country, UK designers, in terms of fashion, I'm not talking about graphics or anything like that, I'm talking about fashion specifically, they are very, very creative. Like, we're taught at university to always think about the concept and the idea and to push boundaries. And it means London universities, I believe, basically breeds very forward thinking designers and people that become creative leaders. So, for example, you know, if you look at like all of the creative directors that hold top positions, most of them went to a London uni. And so that is amazing. But what I don't think there is enough of is like we're almost playing catch up, right? Because that was really successful and it's almost like a 90s school of thought. But we now live in this digital age. Also, there are millions of brands. And I think for people that want their own business or even to be a designer in a house, you need to have an element of understanding about commerciality. And that doesn't mean to say something's boring, but understanding like the difference of adding 3 bows to that top to 5, or why are you doing that? Making difficult decisions or being able to problem solve as a part of design, as well as create something that is beautiful and interesting. I think that our universities are slightly behind in that area, and I think that they need to. My master's was Westminster, and at Westminster, and I think Westminster is an incredible uni. And actually, really 360, they invited a lot of industry people in, so you learn a lot about different sectors that surround you as a designer. And I think more universities need to do that, because what I find with people that come out of uni and come to work is that there's a complete disconnect between what's expected in a workplace and what they do at uni. And so I think that there's something that can be done there. And I don't think it's like changing the syllabus or something like that. I think it's about universities working with people that work in industry to come in and maybe do more talks, and, you know, also to let students know that there's not only a designer role. You can be a buyer, you can be a product developer, you can be a producer. There's so many elements to it that might not be strict design. So that's one thing. And I think that the other thing is, it's difficult because it's obviously a smaller market, but it's much simpler to make more money as a emerging brand, let's say in America, than it is in the UK. And I don't know whether that's just because the market's much bigger. I'm not sure really. It's a good question, but I think funding, for example, like it's quite hard to access to government funding now unless it's related to like innovation or
Right.
sustainability, which we won a fund, a sustainability fund a few years ago, and that was really great. But like there's very, very specific needs to that. Access to funds could be better, because otherwise it leads to an environment where only designers that can really make it come from rich families, basically.
Right.
And like, that's not my experience, but like I could not ask for a more supportive mum. Like when I first started, I was using her spare room in her house as like a studio. She helps me with finances. We talk every day about work, like every single day. She's helping me. I've got a really, really supportive mum, and without her, I couldn't have done it. Not everyone that's got talent and deserves to have their ideas seen and heard has a supportive mum like that, or alternatively has a rich family that can throw money at what they're doing. So I guess maybe more support for entrepreneurship. I'm not really sure what I'm saying, but
I get what you're saying. I feel like if there was more funding, it would even the playing field a bit.
Yeah,
so
I think the playing field is still very much uneven.
Mm-hmm. That's why I asked the question, because I hear that a lot.
It's definitely getting better, and I think London is a city that proves that. Like, I think London is a city where there are multiple really successful and great Black and brown designers, right? So there's, Ahluwalia, my brand, but you've got Wells Bonner, Nicholas Daly, Bianca Saunders, Sol Nash, Martine Rose, Moa Lola, Tolu. That there's so many.
The list goes on and on.
The list goes on. So I think that London is great at hearing us and seeing us. What I also think, it's not part of the question, but what I also think that shows, and is really important, and something I say a lot, is that it really shows that Blackness is not one-dimensional, because we all have these brands, we all know each other, we all get on with each other, and we support each other's work, and our work is completely different. So there's no longer this need to be tokenized. So we are pushing that tokenization thing away. Like, there's no reason why three of us can't be chosen for the same activation. We're not designing the same stuff. And I think that is something that's, as a side, that's something that's really special. Blackness is multi-dimensional and our experiences are different. Even being a Nigerian designer, you have a different experience of being Nigerian. So like mine and Tolu's work is very different, but both equally is as exciting. So I think that's something that's really nice that comes out of it.
Yeah. What she said. So you've recently launched an Ace and Tate collab. How did this come about?
Well, actually, a friend of mine called Dio, who runs the Bear Scouts, he works with Ace and Tate, and he was like, I've just been with the Ace and Tate team, and I think that there's like loads of synergies here. Like, you guys should do something together. And they were currently working on their Ganni collaboration, and I've collaborated with Ganni before. And so he said to them, like, have you thought about this brand? And they were like, that's actually such a good idea. And then it happened quite naturally like that, actually. Then I happened to be in Amsterdam for some other thing to do with work. So they invited me to go and see them. And then we just had like a back and forth, and it came up. We just decided we liked it. We felt like it was a good fit, and then we just decided to work together.
Because it's very fab, and you shot it, right? Or you directed?
Oh yeah,
not shot. Sorry, you directed the shoot.
But the photographer was Amber Pinkerton. Yeah,
thank you for correcting that. As I said, I was like, no, you didn't.
No, it's fine. Amber Pinkerton did the photography, and it's really nice because I was Amber's first like brand client back in the day. And so it was just lovely to work with her again.
Nice full circle moment. Yeah. Actually, I'd like to. I'm going to ask you one more thing, because I do have in my bag your Vogue cover. Do you recognise her from here? Hi. How was that? You've told me before we've spoken about it, but I feel like
just crazy.
People that's watching my stuff, we love models and we love cover girls. And this is a certified British Vogue Edward Enninful era cover girl.
That's mad, isn't it? When you say
it's crazy.
No, I just can't. Like, I still get really emotional thinking about it, and like, I'm so grateful to Edward. He's been really supportive, just, involving me and stuff. And like, from when I was in uni, I remember when I was in my master's, Sarah Moa, who's another incredibly supportive person in my career, invited me to Vogue House to meet Edward when he first started. And I was like a student, and I got to meet him, and I couldn't believe it. And I was also in the room with like designers that were much more established than myself. Like, so Grace was there, and there was just I can't remember everyone, but I remember there being a mixture of us, students and non-students. And I met Edward then, so that was like 6 years ago. So then 6 years later to be on the cover of Vogue is unbelievable. And the way that the team did it was so nice. So they told me that they want. So I was at a party. Edward did party with Kerry Washington, and even being invited to that is just nuts. And so I was at that party, and Edward came up to me and he was like, "Oh, we're going to get in touch with you about something really special." And I was like, "Oh, really? Like, what is it?" And he was like, "I can't tell you yet." And I was like, "Right, okay." So I was like giggling, and then he left. I was trying to get it out. The other, like Laura, who works at Vogue, I was trying to get out of her, and she's like, "I can't tell you yet." Then about a week later, I get an email from the Vogue team, and they like, "We want you to be photographed for the next next issue of British Vogue." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's amazing." And they were like, "Yeah, we want to do like a studio setup and portrait and whatever." And I was like, "Okay, that's amazing." You know, being featured in British Vogue is like unbelievable. So I go to the shoot, and I know that it's with the two other girls. And so we having a great time on set, and we're all being interviewed as a trio, and like talking about our experiences and things like that. And so and Julia interviewed us, and it was just like a really nice day, and like, you know, it was just lovely. And then a few weeks later, Vogue got in contact again and were like, "We're going to do some social content for the issue," which is something I know that they do, and I've been involved with it before, so I didn't think anything of it. So this is in December, and then they came to the studio and they asked me to be interviewed at the door, and I was like, "Okay, cool." So they interview me, and then they're like, "Edward's got a Christmas present for you," and I was like, "Oh, that's so nice! Like, what is a Christmas present?" And they gave me a Christmas present. It was wrapped, and I could feel it was the issue. But obviously, I thought, I know what. I just knew it was the issue.
Well, even the issue would be special because you're in it, right?
Exactly. So
like,
I knew,
oh, wow,
I could feel it was the
thanks.
issue. I was like really excited to look at the print. I love seeing things in print. I think there's no better feeling than seeing your work in print. And then I turned it over and we were on the cover, and I just could not believe it. I thought that was also such a lovely way to tell us. Like, I just will never forget that moment for the rest of my life. So it was
I think a lot of people won't forget it.
Yeah, it was really
so
great.
impactful as well. Like 3 British Nigerians on the cover, not necessarily just like 3 celebrities. Not that that's like they shouldn't be on the cover, but like
it was just really nice. And like, I was talking to the Vogue team. They can't remember the last time they had a designer on the cover. So that was just, yeah.
It just felt like a bit of a win for the city. I feel like people were so. I remember seeing all the comments and the reposts and the videos, and it was just like a moment. So I had to bring it up.
My phone was blowing up. That was crazy. And then me and the team were like running around the different shops finding the issues. It was really funny. It was great. So.
On that note, we'll leave it on that super, super high note. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
I hope that conversation with Priya left you feeling charged up, inspired, and ready to achieve anything. Now get ready for some free game from Anjelica Roselyn. Okay, girl, we had some technical difficulties. The mics were on, the lights were on, connected, testing, 1 2 1 2, you name it. But I didn't want you to miss out on the motivational conversation I had with Anjelica. She is so amazing. So please excuse these acoustic. Sincerest apologies from the bottom of my heart. I would like to introduce to you one of my favorite, actually, my actual favorite fashion illustrator. I'm going to say my favorite. This is Anjelica. Hi. We're in her studio. I had no idea that we are so local to each other.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I think, we are technically neighbours, well, postcode neighbours, I'm sure. So this is really great, and you're so welcome to come by any time.
It's the start of a beautiful journey. We've actually been aware of each other for a long time. Years I've been following you for.
I think we met around 2018.
Yeah.
So, which I'm just realising now that it's quite a few years now.
It's a very long time ago. Oh, so we met in person then, but we met online even years before that.
Yeah, it has been years.
It's been a long time coming that we sit down together.
It's been a minute, but so grateful to know you.
But I say that all to say that it's been amazing to watch your journey. So I reckon we should go to the start. Where did your interest in fashion come from? Were you interested in art first, fashion second, or fashion first and art second?
Oh gosh, that's such a good question. Okay, I think, oh gosh, it just seems like an amalgamation. Like, it's always been like just going, everything is in tandem, but I think it has been fashion first, if I was to really be honest, because, just looking at the collection of my magazines that you're seeing here, this is a lot that I get from my mum. So I grew up with stacks and stacks of magazines in the house, and like having this like food for thought, like really iconic Elle magazines, Vogue magazines, Essence magazines, seeing black women in fashion has always been like the beginning of my journey. And I think that, when we're young, we all like to draw, and we all like to experiment. But I think that relation between art and fashion started quite early, but fashion has always been like the beginning point for me. And art, you know, we do art in school, but art has always been a standout for me, subject-wise. I love it. I love the creativity of it, but it's just been with me for so long.
And you're so good at it.
I think I just do it. I appreciate I get so much support from you and like so many, you know, of us in our community, but I've worked at it for a very long time and to get to where I'm at now. So I think I can say, yes, I am good at it.
I love hearing you give an answer like that because people are so reluctant to like say they're good and cheer themselves on. But you're right, you've been doing this for a long time. You've achieved some amazing things that we're going to get into in our next question. That's why you should keep watching. And you are good, and you should be able to say that you're good. I think we should all be able to, you know, say, yes, hi, I am good at what I do.
Absolutely, babe. And I think that we praise each other so much. I think, you know, again, you and I, we know a lot of mutual people, a lot of amazing women in particular that are just bossing it. But at the same time, if you can't just step back and say, you know what, I did that, or like, I think I'm doing well, because at the end of the day, outside our communities, it's quite rough out there. So I think this is something I am learning as well. This is, you know what, Anjelica, you're doing okay, and just keep going. And Chani, you're doing okay, and you keep going.
Thank you.
I say okay, I mean great. That's what I mean.
So how has your approach to illustration changed over time? Because obviously you just said you started this very young. Of course, I'm sure your first ever drawing is not like what we're seeing today.
Oh gosh.
Or is it? Maybe you always had that freedom.
Well, actually, it's interesting. I'm going to my grandmother's house in St. Lucia, where my family's from, next week, and she told me she has a lot of my old drawings from when I was a child. I don't know if she has it in that house or it's in the other house, but this year I'm making it my mission to like find some old drawings. But my approach to illustration, I will say, even though I've been doing this for a few years now, it hasn't changed that much. I think I still take a very organic approach to illustration, to what I love. Like, for example, I can't draw what I'm not inspired by. So I stay inspired, I keep my inspiration point going. You know, if I'm not inspired, it is difficult to draw. It is difficult to put something together. But usually if I see a collection that I love, or I see like a bag I love or a shoe I love, I know exactly what I'm going to do. So I feel like my vision comes quite clearly through me. It really is that simple, actually. It's not a very complicated thing, which is why I think I love it so much. It's not convoluted. I don't have a lot of process or anything like that. Maybe I do, but it seems quite natural for me.
Oh my god, you're just saying everything that I want to hear. Because I feel like we work in a very similar way, like our approach to what we do.
Yeah.
I'm very just like run and gun, just like do it.
Are you an air sign?
No, I'm a Scorpio.
Oh my gosh, I'm not going to ramble this on camera, but like at the moment, like a lot of my closest friends are Scorpios.
What are you?
Libra.
Oh, I love Libra.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes you watch interviews with like very great people, very talented people, or even just like when I've worked in offices before, the processes people implement, sometimes I think, this might be a controversial thing, sometimes I think the processes people implement is unnecessarily complicated, and it's almost like you feel like you have to do all these extra steps to like justify your work and like make you feel like you're working hard enough. But really, like, babe, just get into your desk and do a drawing that you like. You're good at it. So I like to hear that you're honest about that and just like you just do a natural thing and you just get inspired by what you like and you draw what you like and you draw how you want to draw and you stuck with your style because it's good. You have had so many like moments in your career that must have just been like pinch me. Yeah. What was like, was there a specific moment you can remember when you realised like this is actually serious? like the first moment you were like, okay, I'm an actual like certified fashion illustrator.
Okay, yeah. I think in the early days I have two, and oh my gosh, a lot's happened. A lot has happened. Okay, so the first one, in order, the first one was when I worked with Skinny Dip for the first time. And this was 2017. This was around maybe just before, maybe after I met you actually, around that time. So 2017, and it was a live illustration, and it was a collaboration with Google.
Okay.
And it was like for their phone cases, but it was the first time I was doing like a live illustration, like with a major brand and like a major collaboration, and they sought me out for this job. And I worked with the Skinny Dip team and some of the Google team, and they were the nicest women. I still have like all of them on Instagram. But that was like the first time I really worked with the brands that I loved and that I used, you know, with Skinny Dip. But they were so professional and lovely, and I was illustrating with them in their Covent Garden store, and it was like the middle of summer, and it was just so much fun, and I had such great feedback with like my drawings, which was lovely, but like being there was awesome. I really do have a few answers to this question.
Tell me how many you like.
There might be 3 actually, but then the next one was when I signed with my agent, and I was with her for a few days, and I managed to book a job with Dior and Illustrate in Paris with them for a press event. And that was like, we did it all in like 4 days. I planned everything, booked everything, sent me off, because the job was already going, and one of my another artist was already on a job, and they needed another artist, and my agent was like, I'm just gonna send your portfolio off to Dior, and we're just gonna see what they say. And I remember we were just like, if anything, if they say no, they've seen your work, and that's
It's true, actually.
Yeah, it's a win-win. So I was just like, wow, here's me. Wow, Dior are gonna like see my portfolio. That's all I really cared about in that moment. And then I remember my agent called me and she's like, do you have a passport? And she was like, we want to book you. You have to, I remember it was like a Friday and the job was the following Thursday or something. And she was like, you have to go to Paris next week. And I was like, oh, I guess this is a thing now. And this was a few months after Skinny Dip as well. So this was like a trend. And then that year, I think this was 2018, a lot just kind of started to happen. But at that point, I'd worked really, really hard on my portfolio and I was taking myself more seriously. So I guess other people were starting to take me more seriously. But I think my attitude had changed at that point. And I think the final like answer I'd give was Bicester Village 2020, but that was such a long story because obviously the pandemic and I took my meeting with Bicester Village when I did the mural for like the entire village. A lot was going on. It was the first time I did like a massive mural, and I took the meeting for that February 2020, and of course March 2020 where we were in lockdown. So the project was like on hold for 3 months, and then there was a renegotiation. But when that actually was finalized and I went to Bicester to see my work up, and there was like all this COVID regulation going on, it was just very surreal. So I would say, in short, a period between like 2018 and 2020, so like a 2-year period, and I was like, this seems to be happening. I mean, I graduated from LCF 10 years ago this year, and I can't believe how much has happened. And when I say ups and downs, I really do mean that, like very severe ups and very severe downs, and you really do have to take it all. It's such a ride.
That must be like an amazing feeling to have like 10 years to look back on, like what 10 years you had.
Yeah.
Ups and downs, but look where we are now in this course studio.
Oh my thank you. This is where I have all my ups and downs now, literally right here, so I feel very grateful.
Quite nice to hear, the more I speak to people, how many people actually like thrived throughout the pandemic. I think when we were in it, we really saw it. It's like this is something that's holding us back. But the more people I speak to, everyone seems like they had their big moments in those years. So
yeah, because we would do them.
Yeah, it's good that we've kind of made lemonade. We've talked about Skinny Dip, Dior, Vista. What I really want to know as a fashion girlie, when did you get involved with Show Studio?
Oh my gosh. Okay, for starters, I love Show Studio. I love like the Show Studio family. I love the team. I was with one of the girls actually at LCF last week. So this is another, I'm not like long story, but so we've known about Show Studio forever, I guess. If you've been in fashion, you know about Nick Knight. You've known about Show Studio for a long time. Taking it back, so let's go like back 10 years to like 2014 when I graduated, and it was like 2014, 2015, and I really wanted to be with Show Studio, and I think I sent my portfolio maybe twice even, and nothing ever happened, and I was seeing everyone doing all this cool stuff with illustration, and I was like, that looks so cool. Kind of left it, did my thing, and I met some of my now like really, really close illustrator friends that we, not through Show Studio, just like in general, just from Instagram. And this was around 2020, just before the pandemic, and one of my friends, Sam, was like, who's on Show Studio as well as an artist, and I was like, I really like want to do that. I really want to reach out. And he was just like, just do it, like really blasé. He was like, oh, just do it, like just email them, you'll be a perfect fit. And I was like, they didn't reply to me like 5 years ago. And he was like, just do it. And I was like, okay, didn't do it. So I actually did. This is important. I didn't do it.
It's real though.
Yeah.
Sometimes we like second guess.
Absolutely. I was like, okay, and then just didn't for a year and a half actually, because I did email mid 2021 again and actually got a reply. So and then they reached out and they were like, do you want to illustrate for, what was it, spring summer 2022, but this was September 2021. And I was like, yes, I would like to do that. That would be really, really cool.
It's when you get what you want, you try to be so calm, like, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Inside you're like,
do you want to go to Paris? You know what, I think I'm going to think about it.
I think I might have time. Are you busy?
I'm not sure. Just, when you're really casually writing an email that you really want to write. So that's kind of how it happened. Did that. This is, I think this will be really good for you to know. I really wanted to do a panel, one of the panel talks, and I was talking to Bex, who was our director at the time for ecom, and we were doing the Daphne project. So Nick Knight reached out to a few of us and was like, I'm shooting Daphne's music video, which was incredible. And he was like, I'm having some artists on set, and we're doing like an artistic orchestra kind of thing. And so he reached out to a few of us, and I was leaving for Berlin like the next day because so much was going on. So shot with Nick and the team for like 2 days, I think I did. And then when we actually had to hand in the work, the illustrations that we were doing, and I saw Bex and I was like, hi, I really would love to do a panel, actually. I was like, I just have this idea, and I was like, I actually wanted me and my friends to do a panel. And she was like, just write me an email and I'll pass you on to editorial. And I was like, and then I actually did that. I didn't wait a year and a half to do that. So I literally got home, wrote her the email, and then Dear Abby editorial was like, do you want to do a panel? And we're going to be discussing Daniel Lee's inaugural Burberry show. And I was like, okay. And I met some amazing people. But I think in that moment, what I will say, I really showed up for myself. Working with Nick has been, always is amazing. He's so incredibly talented and such a visionary. I cannot wait to see what he does with the Met Gala. I've been told it's incredible. Ooh. I was told that last week, that it's amazing.
Do you have inside scoop?
Yeah, just to...
If this is posted before the Met Gala?
This might be, this is probably after.
I can't remember.
I haven't seen anything, disclaimer, but it's supposed to be amazing. But for me, it's just really important to be around people who are also visionaries and obvious. And I was in CSM Library the other day, and I was looking at, I think it was a collection of ID magazines and their photography since the 80s. And I remember seeing something with Nick, like 1986, and I was thinking, I wasn't even born yet. And, our icons have been working for so incredibly long before any of us were even born. Like, it's amazing just to be included and have recognition and, in our field, in our industry, and all the other artists at Show Studio. I have some amazing friends there. I feel very blessed, but there's a lot of hard work still,
There's so many lessons in there. I'm just trying to absorb them because, first of all, the fact that you applied twice didn't get accepted, but then you did get accepted later. I think that's an important thing for people to hear, because you don't just take no and think, okay, well, that's it, because sometimes it's just right person, wrong time.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't mean they saw it and thought, oh, this is trash.
Absolutely. You have to know that if you're not hearing a yes now, it doesn't mean you're not going to hear a yes in a year. Like for me, it was like 6 years apart. And I'm actually, I'll be honest, really glad that my drawings from 2015 are not out there on Show Studio, because they are not great. Very crunchy drawings, and I'm just so glad that I allowed myself to refine and like take time. And there's so much stuff I still want to do in life that I know that even though I want it now, I might not actually be ready for that right now. That might be Anjelica 2025, 2026, 2030 and onwards. So I personally, even though I'm 32 now, I have a theory that when I'm in my 40s, I'm gonna be like making my best work.
I say this all the time, but I feel like my 60s are going to be the one for me.
Oh, I love
that. I don't know why.
I love that.
I think I love Diana Ross so much, and she's 80 now, or getting there. She's turned 80, right?
80.
So I'm like, listen, there's no limit. There's no end.
There is absolutely. It ends when you end, and even then, like with us.
Ooh! Say it all again.
It ends when you end. But even then, you know, the work that we do, our work is forever.
But who is your dream client, if you have one? I'm sure you have a few.
I have a few. I really do, and I don't know if I can say like the one that I really, really want. I think, do you know what? The one I really want, when it happens, we'll do an exclusive. Like, I promise you this, and I'm hoping we could even do it there. That would be amazing.
When it happens, we're gonna do an exclusive.
We're going to.
And we're gonna do it there.
We're going to do it there. It
When you go, I follow. I don't know.
I have to say, at this point, 10 years on from graduating, I feel like I've hit a lot, and I have achieved a lot. Do you know what it is? Charlie?
Mm-hmm.
I take myself like quarter by quarter or like year by year, and I think there's something that I really want this year, and I kind of almost can't see past it.
But that's a good way to be. It's like tunnel vision.
I massively have tunnel vision. But having said that, outside of that, I would love a Miu Miu moment very much.
I can see that for you.
I would love that so much. I love Miu Miu. I love the brand. I love even like the pink packaging.
Mm-hmm.
I love Nutria Prada. I mean, she's literally like on my vote.
I thought she was up the cupboard.
Oh, she's here. Yeah, she's here. Yeah. I love that woman so much. There's a few like designers that I really like. For example, like Nutria Prada, Diane von Furstenberg still is, but when I was like graduating, like that was like my like icon. Like I love her as a woman. I especially when that was my style, because I love 70s style as well. So yeah, I think a Miu Miu moment, because I love Nutria Prada. I love Prada very much, and I love print, and I love colour, but I think because Miu Miu is so femme and so girly, and that is so my vibe, and I just love it. If not Miu Miu, Anna Sui as well. Oh my goodness.
That would be incredible.
Everything.
To see you do Anna Sui.
Oh my gosh, like doing like something massive for her.
And you have such like a strong visual identity that when you're describing these things to me, I can see it exactly like what I think it would look like.
Thank
which
you.
I love. That's what I love about your work. It's so like, once you know Angelica's work, like you know it, and you know it from 100 miles away. You just know it. That's your style. So I can see the Miu Miu store. I can see I can see it.
I love that visual identity. That is fierce.
I know some things.
Yeah.
Does your illustration style reflect how you dress?
Oh,
or vice versa?
Oh, these are such good questions. I just feel like you get it, honestly. I feel very understood by your questions. Yes, massively so. And I think, not to quote Diane von Furstenberg, you know, her book, The Woman I Want to Be, or The Woman I Wanted to Be, but, you know, the woman that, it's aspiration at the end of the day. I think it's like a form of manifestation,
100%.
almost, because when you see something fabulous, you see an Issey Miyake, you see a Roberto Cavalli, you see, you know, a Miu Miu piece, and you're just like, I want to identify with that, because fashion is about identity. Clothes are about identity at the end of the day. So I think, especially because I draw women that look like me and like look like us, massively so, like I want to, it's like inserting myself, and especially being like my age, I think we're around the same age, but yeah. But I think, you know, when you grow up with like, especially when you look at older magazines, like in my magazine collection, going backward and looking at like, let's just say like 2010.
The horrors.
I would say with Edward, I have followed his work. I actually used to technically work for him in my first internship ever. So this, I haven't spoken about this. So so he used to be, I think he used to own or be very high up in a fashion agency called Maxim Fashion Agency. So when I was doing during like year 10, like we do like a placement work experience. So I was like 15, and this is the only time I can ever say this, because I'm not a Nepo baby in the slightest, but my mum got me this job because her friend worked there. That's the only time I can run that ever. And I do like to cling to it because I don't have a lot of that. But my mum's friend Sharon, who I love, she was working there, and I worked, so Edward wasn't there, he was actually in New York, it was 2 weeks, but I worked for his sister.
Wow.
And it was like he was I think it was creative director at ID at the time, and that was my introduction to ID magazine.
Wow.
And that 2 weeks at Maximum Fashion Agency changed my life. That was, a lot happened. I learned about ID magazine. I created my MySpace for the first time.
I miss MySpace.
I miss it so much.
Should we film the whole interview from here?
Oh my gosh, you're in my top 8.
You're in my top 8.
Top 8 of fashion, honestly. And I created my MySpace, and I remember like getting on like YouTube for the first time, like when I was in the office, which I probably shouldn't say. I was working.
I think it's been long enough.
I think they'll forgive me. I think we're all doing it. But I remember there was a girl who was like looking after me, Hannah, who I swear, Hannah, where are you? I miss you. She looked after me, and I think she was from Eritrea, and she was like amazing. And I just had these 2 weeks of like, that's when I started to look at magazines, and we had a lot of lookbooks in the agency as well, and I think I still have some of them somewhere. Like Peter Pilotto was really in at the time, like I think maybe Dem was just starting up at this time, and it was 2007 or 2006 roughly, so a long time ago. But that was like my introduction into fashion. But like I was working with like people of color, like in this like very, very small office. It was amazing.
I'm just blown away. What an amazing like work experience, first of all, in school.
Yeah.
And just to be like in that office at that time, you're working with actual people of color. Like,
yeah.
Looking back now, you must realize what a rare situation you are.
Rare.
Not to compete, but my work experience.
Please tell me.
I was also got there through nepotism. You know, a seamstress that had a little boutique, and then I accidentally put a dress in the window. She was like, "You can do the window dressing if you want." I was like, "Right, say no more."
Oh my gosh,
I went
you
for,
do
like,
VM?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I went for like the biggest and most fabulous dress I could find in the whole place.
Yeah.
It was a tiny place. And it was like this gold, like really heavily embellished dress. I was like, okay, that's going to be like the star in the middle mannequin. And then she came running out like, take it down, because it was a custom for Kelly Brook. Do you remember Kelly Brook? For like red carpet. And I like just showing it to the world.
Very
briefly.
off the time.
Yeah, but I was like, I want to put the best dress. Surely you put your best dress in the window. Like, that was my
Kelly
first
Brook.
and only VM experience.
Wow, I love that, and I love VM.
I still think you win, but I had to just throw that out there.
No, Kelly Brook, no. That's amazing.
Listen, she's a national treasure, right? What is the hardest part and what is the most rewarding part of your job?
The hardest part of my job, staying inspired, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Just staying on it and staying... I definitely not staying relevant. As long as you're relevant to yourself and what you like, I really don't care. I really actually don't care about what's trendy.
I quite like that because when you actually think about the phrase, like relevant to what?
To who?
Like, things changing all the time. You're
Absolutely.
always relevant to somebody.
Absolutely. Spending more time with myself, which just means getting older, I realised that you spend a lot of time with yourself. You know the saying, like, everywhere you go, there you are.
Mm-hmm.
That is so true.
You can't run.
Can't run from yourself. Spending more time with me, I realised that I care a bit less about what's going on, about trend, which I hate that term so incredibly much. Which is why I'm building my like magazine archive, because I think looking back can give you a bit more grounding, especially in our industry. So I think staying inspired, which is why I love to look at magazines. I like to be like visually aware of what's going on. But that for me is a task, because I get moments sometimes in like fashion weeks and I'm just like not really connecting to much, or I have to wait for maybe I'm not connecting to certain things in a certain city and I have to wait for something else. So that can be a challenge. And I think the height of when I was inspired was like 2019, 2020. I think like when like Pier Paolo at Valentino, for example, which is like one of my favorites, and that for me, like when he was really doing a lot with like the hats and the feathers and things like that, there was a lot of like visual food going on around that time.
Visual food?
Visual food.
You see my visual identity and you raise me visual food.
Oh my gosh. Let's put them next to each other, please. Visual food, because it's like, you get hungry for visuals and you just want to like be fed by that. So that for me, so staying on top of that is hard, I think. But what's the easiest part? Again,
No, I think most rewarding.
Rewarding.
None of it's easier.
No, that's so true. Most rewarding. I think the other end of that being inspired and being in like a creative flow is so rewarding. And like there's a moment, because I know I have a presence on like online on Instagram and stuff like that, but there's a moment like before I post something where it's like just me and the drawing, and like we just kind of have this relationship of like things are working out and I love how things are looking, and before I've put it anywhere, before I've shown anyone, there's a reward in that when I know that I love something. I don't actually seek a ton of validation outside.
Which you shouldn't.
You really shouldn't.
And I think it's hard in this day and age,
Yeah.
especially like, not to sound like so corny or whatever, but like for people coming up now, like younger people,
Yeah, yeah.
I can't imagine how hard that is, because it was difficult when we were that age, let alone
Absolutely,
now.
absolutely. And I'll be like, don't get me wrong, I'm not stupid. I'm gonna say it's nice. Like,
Of course.
it's nice. Like when people are complimenting you and like, you know, you get support and like that is really nice. It's not always going to be there, but I think I try to have a moment where I don't rely on it, and I can just be with my work and know what's working, know what's not working. I feel rewarded with that, and everything outside of that, with when my clients are happy, that's great. When my agent's happy, that's amazing. When I'm happy, even better, and that's like level 1, honestly. But when I know my work is working, just between me and my work, that's rewarding. Yeah,
I love this answer, because I think even myself anticipated you might say like the end product, like seeing the thing, but it's actually like the fact that you're able to do what you do, and like you're so appreciative that you have that thing in your brain that allows you to be creative, and that's the most rewarding thing for you, which makes sense actually, because without that you wouldn't be able to have the rewards and the end product and any of it. So I think it's really cool to see that you're just really rewarded by the act itself almost. And I want to just add a note on the validation thing, because I just think people need to hear it a bit more. I was talking to a friend the other day, and they asked me like, if you post something that performs badly, do you think you should delete it or not? Because they'd seen that like people do that. Listen to you, a lot of people do that. They're not just posting less than you think, and you thought, oh, I should post more. It's gone. And I was like, if you want my advice, leave everything up. And I leave everything up. There's things up that are scraping 100 views now. Do you know what? Because I like it. No, they are. Like, you leave it up. It can't always be 1 million views a day. Like,
it's so true.
I leave it there for that reason.
Yeah.
Every day is different.
Can I tell you a little story about that as
well?
Go
for it.
This is actually when I did Vogue Germany, which was a huge moment for me. And I remember this was end of 2022 that I was working on this with the art director, and so they wanted me to do the horoscope special, and it was like a mini magazine. When they were running it, and so usually when I work with clients, they reference my own work. Vogue referenced the most low engagement drawing like from my Instagram. It was not even like 200 likes, which for my profile is a bit on the low end. And I remember I think it was a Loewe drawing, and I'm gonna send it to you so you know which one I mean and you can insert it. But like,
I will.
It was a drawing that I did for myself. It was a bit quick, but it was something when I was experimenting, and I put it on Instagram. Didn't really get that much engagement. Left it up. Vogue were referencing it. You have to leave your stuff up.
Sometimes it's not how many, it's who. And I really say that.
Good morning.
Just generally good morning with us, isn't it? But no, honestly, it doesn't need to be 100 million people.
No.
It just needs to be Vogue Germany.
It just needs to be Vogue Germany.
I'm being silly, but
it's
you know what I
not
mean.
how many, it's who. Oh my goodness, put that everywhere. I think when it comes to Instagram and it comes to TikTok, and I love both apps very much, but you can get caught up in the numbers, and it's just not that important at all. You've got to own your own path.
100%.
You've got to own your scraping 100 likes. You've got to own your oh, this is blowing up. If you think it's fierce, leave it up. It is fierce. Also on an Illustrator note, on an artist note as well, there's a lot of consensus with a lot of my friends and family that are artists. Whenever you do a piece that you really, really, really like, it's never going to do well. That's just how it goes. I could do a piece, I'm just like, oh, I absolutely love this. Not that much engagement, but you've got to leave it up because someone is going to reference.
It was a pleasure to talk to you today. I could clearly do this all day because we've just realised how long we've been talking for.
Thank you so much, Charlie. This has been amazing.
Cool.
I actually can't wait for the next one, hopefully. But
there will be more, definitely. This is too easy that we're going to do it again.
This was just amazing. Thank you so much.
Cool, and everybody follow Anjelica. I'll put her details.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you so much for watching this week's episode. Like, subscribe, and I will see you next week with an extravaganza featuring one man and one man only, Mr. Marcellus Reynolds. See you then. Bye.